The ballroom of Atlanta's St. Regis shimmered under golden chandeliers and the low hum of jazz. Naomi Pierce had promised her best friend she would show up, smile, sip one glass of champagne, and disappear before their matchmaking schemes began. She should have known better. Across the courtyard, she spotted Tiana whispering to Jasmine while Brianna pretended to scroll her phone, the three of them exchanging that unmistakable look of mischief. Naomi adjusted the emerald satin of her gown and sighed. "Lord, not again. Naomi Pierce," Brianna called, waving her over with exaggerated cheer. "Come meet somebody." Standing beside them was a man who instantly quieted the noise of the room. Zion Holt. Tall, dark-skinned, and effortlessly composed, he carried himself with the calm confidence of a man who never needed to prove anything. His tuxedo fit like it had been made for him, and when he smiled, it was slow and certain. "Naomi, this is Zion Holt," Brianna said, too casually to be innocent. "Zion, this is our favorite overachiever, literary agent extraordinaire." Zion extended his hand. "Pleasure to finally meet the woman I've been hearing about all evening." His voice was deep and velvety, the kind that made her heartbeat shift a little. Naomi took his hand. "Should I be flattered or concerned?" "Maybe a little of both," he said, the corner of his mouth curving. She smirked. "Well, enjoy your evening, Mr. Holt. My friends clearly think they run a dating agency." She turned to leave, but Brianna stepped forward. "Naomi, the private suite upstairs is ready for your break from the noise. You deserve a few quiet minutes." Naomi raised an eyebrow but accepted the keycard. Anything to escape the scheming. 10 minutes later, she stepped into the suite, grateful for the silence until she noticed a tall figure near the window. Zion Holt turned around, looking just as startled. "They told me you wanted to meet privately about a foundation partnership," he said. Naomi frowned. "You're what?" Before either could make sense of it, the door clicked shut. She tried the handle. "Locked! Brianna!" Naomi called. "This isn't funny." Through the door came muffled laughter. "You two need to talk. We'll be back in the morning." Naomi groaned and turned to Zion, her patience hanging by a thread. "They did not just lock us in." "Oh, they absolutely did," he said, a low chuckle slipping out. "Guess we're hostages of love. More like victims of insanity." Their eyes met, irritation fading into reluctant amusement. The night stretched before them, the city glittering beyond the windows, and somewhere between disbelief and curiosity, a quiet spark began to hum. Whatever this was, it wasn't going to be forgettable. Naomi stared at the locked door, disbelief hardening into reluctant humor. Zion rubbed the back of his neck, the faintest smile on his lips. "Guess our friends take matchmaking seriously." "Seriously insane," Naomi muttered, folding her arms. "I should have known they'd try something dramatic. But locking us in? That's next-level betrayal." Zion chuckled. "I'll help you hide the bodies when we get out." He gestured toward the terrace. "In the meantime, there's a chef outside waiting to serve. Might as well eat before we plan their downfall." Naomi gave him a wary look, but his expression was open, teasing. Not arrogant, not pushy. Just calm. Real. "You're really okay with this?" "I'm starving," he said simply. "And it'd be a shame to let good food go to waste," she sighed, fighting a reluctant smile. "Fine, but don't think this means they've won." "Never," he promised, extending a hand. "We're simply making the best of being held hostage." They stepped onto the terrace where the Atlanta skyline shimmered in the distance like scattered gold. The waiter uncorked a bottle of wine, the soft pop punctuating the evening air as a gentle breeze carried the faint scent of jasmine. Zion raised his glass. "What should we toast to? Our imprisonment or our eventual revenge?" Naomi smirked, meeting his gaze. "How about to unexpected evenings?" Their glasses clinked and something unspoken flickered between them. The tension that had once felt like irritation now hummed like possibility. "Tell me about these friends of yours," Zion said, slicing into his seared scallops. "The ones who thought this was a good idea." Naomi rolled her eyes. "Tiana's the planner, Jasmine's the chaos, and Brianna's the moral support who somehow convinces me to go along with their schemes. Sounds like a loyal crew." "They are," she admitted softly. "Just dangerously persistent." As the night deepened, their conversation unfolded easily. Stories, laughter, quiet moments between sips of wine, and shared glances that lingered too long. The waiter served a rich chocolate souffle, and they shared it between them. The intimacy of two spoons tapping the same dish making Naomi's pulse quicken in ways she hadn't expected. "You know what's ridiculous?" she said, licking a bit of chocolate from her lip without realizing it. "I'm actually having a good time." Zion froze for half a second, watching her, then smiled. "Don't let them hear you say that. We'll never hear the end of it." They laughed. Real laughter, the kind that slips out when guards finally drop. Midnight crept in unnoticed until the air turned cool and the city lights blurred into softness. Back inside, Zion poured 2 glasses of brandy from the suite's minibar. They sank into opposite ends of the sofa, shoes kicked off, posture easy. The silence wasn't awkward now. It was comfortable. "So no serious relationships?" he asked, swirling the amber liquid. "Hard to believe a woman like you's still single." Naomi arched a brow. "Flattery won't get you out of this hostage situation." He chuckled. "It's not flattery if it's true." She took a slow sip before answering. "I've dated. Nothing stuck. Eventually it felt easier to focus on work. Less messy. What about you?" She countered. "Billionaire bachelor. I'm sure women are lined up at your door." "That's the problem," he said quietly. "It's hard to tell who's really interested in me and who's interested in what I have." The honesty in his voice pulled something inside her loose. She leaned forward, resting her hand lightly on his arm. "That must be exhausting." Zion looked at her hand, then back at her, and suddenly the air between them shifted. Charged, quiet, undeniable. His gaze dipped to her lips for the briefest moment before he looked away with a soft laugh. "It's getting late," he said, standing. "You take the bed." "I'll crash on the sofa." Naomi shook her head. "Don't be ridiculous. That sofa isn't long enough for you. The bed's huge. We can share it." He hesitated. "You trust me that much?" She met his eyes steadily. "Let's just say I'm willing to risk it." For the first time that night, Zion didn't have a comeback. He just smiled, slow, surprised, and a little dangerous, and the distance between them suddenly felt smaller than it ever had before. The lights of Atlanta shimmered through the tall glass windows, bathing the suite in a warm amber glow. Naomi slipped off her heels and stretched her legs, feeling the tension in her shoulders slowly ease. Zion was by the minibar again, pouring a little more brandy, the golden liquid catching the light like honey. "Still awake?" he asked, his tone softer now, almost intimate. Naomi leaned back against the sofa cushion. "You think I could sleep after being tricked and kidnapped by my own best friends?" He smiled faintly, walking over and handing her the glass. Their fingers brushed, just a fleeting touch. But it lingered longer than either expected. "Then let's call it an experiment in forced socialization," Naomi smirked. "You sound way too calm for someone who's locked in a room with a stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore," Zion said, taking the seat beside her. "We've shared dinner, swapped stories, even plotted revenge. That counts for something." She glanced sideways at him, trying to fight the small tug in her chest. "You always this charming, or is this a coping mechanism?" "A little of both," he admitted. "But I can stop if it's working too well." That earned him a laugh, low, genuine, the kind that made her eyes soften. They sat in silence for a while, sipping quietly, the air humming between them. Outside, the city moved on. Distant traffic, faint music from the street below. But in that suite, the world felt narrowed to 2 people sharing the same breath. Zion set his glass down and turned toward her. "Can I ask you something personal?" Naomi hesitated, her pulse quickening. "Depends how personal. When was the last time someone kissed you? I mean, really kissed you?" Her breath caught. The question wasn't crude. It was raw, curious, and sincere. She looked down at her glass, then met his eyes. "Too long," she admitted quietly. He didn't move right away. The silence stretched, thick and electric. Then he reached out and gently set her glass aside, his movements deliberate and careful. "Would it be completely inappropriate if I kissed you right now?" Naomi's lips curved, a faint, nervous smile. "Completely." Zion's voice dropped to a whisper. "Do it anyway?" He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull back, but she didn't. When his lips finally touched hers, it wasn't the kiss of strangers. It was the kind of kiss that made everything else fall away. It started tender, almost hesitant, then deepened with a hunger that had been waiting too long for an outlet. Naomi's hands rose, threading through his short curls, pulling him closer as he wrapped an arm around her waist. The taste of brandy lingered between them, warm and intoxicating. Every touch, every breath felt like something neither of them had known they were missing until this exact moment. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless, hearts racing, foreheads pressed together in the quiet aftermath. Zion exhaled a low laugh. "That was, yeah," she said softly, finishing for him. He smiled against her skin. "Our friends are going to be unbearable when they find out." "Then let's not tell them," Naomi whispered, tracing his jaw with her fingertip. "Let them think we spent the night plotting their downfall." Zion laughed, low and rich. "You're dangerous, Naomi Pierce. And you like that." "I do." He kissed her again, slower this time, with the ease of someone who already knew he'd be thinking about her long after the door finally opened. Outside, the first hints of dawn touched the skyline, but inside the suite, time had stopped, and for the first time in years, Naomi didn't want it to start again. Soft sunlight slipped through the curtains, brushing across Naomi's bare shoulder. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was, only the warmth against her skin, the steady rhythm of another heartbeat close behind her. Then it hit her. The sweet, the laughter, the kiss. Zion. He was still asleep beside her, his arm draped loosely across her waist, his breathing deep and even. In the golden light, he looked nothing like the polished businessman she'd met hours ago. His face was relaxed, vulnerable, a quiet kind of beautiful that made her chest tighten. She carefully turned to face him. A faint stubble shadowed his jaw. His lashes rested against his cheeks, long and soft, and his lips were curved into the faintest trace of a smile, as if even in sleep, he was at peace. Naomi couldn't look away. Something stirred deep in her chest. Not panic, not guilt, but something she hadn't felt in a very long time. "Morning," he murmured suddenly, eyes opening. She froze. "You were pretending?" "Trying to," he said with a lazy grin. "But you were staring too hard. Kind of ruined my act." Her face flushed. I was just admiring," he teased, stretching. "It's okay. I was doing the same thing before you woke up." She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide the smile tugging at her lips. "You're impossible. Only sometimes." He sat up, glancing toward the window. "Looks like our captors still haven't set us free." Naomi sighed, running a hand through her hair. "They're probably downstairs bragging about how this was meant to be. I swear when I get out of here, I'm changing the locks on all our group dinners." Zion laughed softly. "You can't stay mad at them forever. Watch me." They both smiled then, the air between them softer now, no longer heavy with surprise but with something unspoken, the awareness that what had happened last night wasn't just an accident. He stood, grabbing his phone from the nightstand, and dialed the front desk. "Hi, this is Zion Holt in Suite 1840. Could you send someone up? The door appears to be jammed." Naomi raised an eyebrow as he hung up. "And?" "They're sending maintenance," he said, then turned to her. "I guess our time in captivity's almost over." A strange pang hit her, relief mixed with disappointment. She rose from the bed and wrapped herself in one of the hotel's white robes. "Guess that's that then." Zion studied her for a moment, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. "Does it have to be?" She looked back at him, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "Dinner was an ambush," he said quietly. "But I don't regret it. And I don't want it to end here, locked doors and champagne aside." Her heart stuttered. "You're serious?" "As serious as I've been in a long time." Before she could answer, a loud click echoed from the door. It swung open, revealing a maintenance worker, and, just behind him, 3 familiar faces peeking from the hallway. Tiana, Jasmine, and Brianna, all grinning like they just won the lottery. Naomi pinched the bridge of her nose. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me," Tiana whispered loudly. "Mission accomplished." Zion chuckled, brushing a hand against Naomi's arm as he passed. "See you soon, Naomi Pierce." And with that, he was gone, leaving her standing there, robe-clad, cheeks flushed, and heart racing faster than it should have. She wanted to be angry. She should have been angry. But all she could think about was the way he'd said her name. That afternoon, back at her apartment, Naomi sat on the couch with her phone in hand. A new message lit the screen. Zion Holt. Dinner next week. No locks this time. Say yes. She smiled in spite of herself. Naomi Pierce. We'll see. Don't push your luck. She hit send, but her reflection in the screen betrayed her. She was already smiling like someone who knew she'd just said yes to something that might change everything. Atlanta's skyline shimmered in the distance as Naomi sat in the waiting room of Dr. Patrice Reynolds, her nerves wound tight. 3 weeks had passed since the home test, those faint pink lines that had turned her entire world upside down. She had stared at them for nearly an hour, hoping they'd fade, praying she'd imagined them. But they hadn't. And now, here she was. Around her, expectant mothers laughed softly, partners held hands, and the air was filled with warmth she didn't quite feel ready for. Naomi's fingers fidgeted with the edge of her purse. The seat beside her was empty. Zion didn't know yet. Ms. Pierce, the nurse called gently. The doctor will see you now. Naomi followed her down a softly lit hallway lined with pictures of newborns, each one smiling or swaddled in love. Her heart raced faster with every step. Dr. Reynolds greeted her with a kind smile. First pregnancy? Is it that obvious? Naomi asked, trying to sound casual. The doctor chuckled. Only because of the look on your face. Let's confirm what you already suspect. The examination was calm and efficient. Moments later, Dr. Reynolds swiveled toward the monitor. You're about 7 weeks along. Everything looks healthy. Naomi's throat tightened. 7 weeks, she repeated quietly. The timeline. Tracing back perfectly to that locked sweet night. The laughter, the tenderness, the impossible connection. Dr. Reynolds adjusted the machine. Ready to meet your little one? Naomi nodded, barely breathing. The gel was cool against her skin, and then, there it was. A tiny, flickering heartbeat on the screen. That's your baby's heartbeat, the doctor said softly. Perfectly strong. The sound filled the room, rapid and rhythmic like the flutter of wings. Tears burned Naomi's eyes. It's so fast. That's normal, Dr. Reynolds reassured. About 150 beats per minute, exactly where it should be. Naomi covered her mouth with one hand, her chest trembling as emotion flooded through her. Until now, the pregnancy had felt abstract, a secret she could pretend wasn't real. But seeing that heartbeat made everything shift. This was real. This was life. Dr. Reynolds handed her a small black and white image, a tiny grainy outline inside a blur of gray. That's your baby. Everything looks wonderful. Naomi stared at the ultrasound, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I'm really having a baby, she whispered. Yes, the doctor said with a smile, and you're going to do just fine. Later that afternoon, Naomi walked through Piedmont Park, the ultrasound photo clutched in her hand. The autumn air was crisp, the trees brushed with gold and red. Couples strolled hand in hand, children chased bubbles across the grass, and for the first time she wondered if that would be her next year. Pushing a stroller, laughing, whole. She stopped at a quiet bench overlooking the lake. Her phone buzzed. A message from Zion Holt. Still overseas, flight delayed again, can't wait to see you, sunshine. Her eyes blurred. She typed, then deleted. I'm pregnant. She tried again. We need to talk when you get back. Deleted that too. Instead, she just wrote, Naomi Pierce. Be safe. I miss you. As she hit send, her free hand drifted instinctively to her stomach. Looks like it's just us for now, little one, she whispered. But we'll be okay. Above her, the city lights began to flicker on, painting the park in gold. A promise of new beginnings she hadn't planned for but suddenly couldn't imagine losing. 3 weeks slipped by in a blur of messages, late-night video calls, and dates replayed in Naomi's mind. Zion had flown out for a month-long business expansion in Dubai, leaving behind a silence that text messages couldn't fill. Their connection was still alive, constant calls, soft misuse, and playful teasing, but the distance made everything heavier. Every word she didn't say pressed against her ribs like a secret begging to breathe. Each morning, Naomi woke to nausea that refused to fade. Just nerves, she told herself at first, but nerves didn't last this long. She worked from home, half the time gripping her desk and the other half staring blankly at her computer screen, trying to focus on client manuscripts. The ultrasound photo sat in a drawer nearby, hidden but never far. At a publishing gala one evening, she forced herself to show up. Networking mattered, and she couldn't afford to seem distracted. But the moment she walked into the glittering hall, the scent of champagne and truffle oil turned her stomach. She smiled mechanically at handshakes and small talk until the room started spinning. "Naomi Pierce," came a voice behind her. Monique Davenport, her sharp-tongued rival agent. "Haven't seen you around lately. Heard you've been cozy with that tech billionaire. What's he like? Does he code or just collect companies and women?" Naomi's jaw tightened. "Some of us prefer to focus on our work, Monique. You should try it sometime." Before Monique could retort, Naomi felt a wave of dizziness so strong she had to grip the nearest table. A concerned voice broke through the noise. "Naomi, are you okay?" It was Chef Marcus Ellison, her biggest client. "I'm fine," she lied, setting down her untouched drink. "Just a little under the weather." Marcus frowned. "You don't look fine. Let me take you home." She shook her head. "Please don't make a scene. I'll be fine." But moments later, nausea overwhelmed her. She barely made it to the restroom before emptying her stomach, mortified. When she looked up from the sink, her reflection was pale, eyes red. "Get it together," she whispered. "You've survived worse." A knock came at the door. "Naomi, it's Brianna." Naomi unlocked the door to find her friend waiting with concern written all over her face. "Morning sickness again?" Brianna asked gently. "Except it's more like all-day sickness," Naomi admitted weakly. Brianna guided her to a bench in the lounge area. "You can't keep pushing yourself like this. You need to tell him." Naomi looked down at her hands. "He's in Dubai, Bri, working 18-hour days. I don't want to drop this on him while he's halfway across the world." "He deserves to know," Brianna said softly. "This isn't just your story anymore." Naomi swallowed hard. 5 more days. He'll be home in 5 days. Brianna nodded, squeezing her hand. "Then promise me you'll tell him the truth when he's back." "I promise." That night, Naomi lay in bed staring at the city lights outside her window. Her phone buzzed, a video call. Zion's face appeared, a little blurry from the weak connection, but his smile was clear. "Hey, sunshine," he said. "You look tired." "Just long day," she said, forcing a smile. He tilted his head. "You sure you're okay?" She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm fine. Just miss you." "I miss you too," he said softly. "Almost done here. Just hold on a little longer, yeah?" Naomi smiled, but her eyes burned. "Always." When the call ended, she turned off the light and rested her hand on her stomach. 5 more days, she whispered. Then he'll know. Outside, thunder rumbled softly over Atlanta, the sound of a storm approaching, just like the truth she could no longer hold back. The day Zion returned to Atlanta, the city buzzed with the hum of early evening, neon lights flickering on, car horns echoing through the streets. And somewhere beneath all that noise, Naomi's heart beating far too fast. She'd spent all day preparing, rearranging the apartment for no reason other than to keep herself busy. The small ultrasound photo sat on the dining table beside 2 dinner plates and a single flickering candle. By the time the knock came, her hands were trembling. She opened the door to find him standing there in travel-worn, eyes tired but smiling. "You look even more beautiful than I remembered," Zion said, setting his bag down before she could reply. Naomi tried to smile, but the lump in her throat made it impossible. "You're home," he nodded, stepping forward and pulling her into his arms. The scent of his cologne, familiar and grounding, nearly undid her. "I missed you," he murmured against her hair. "I missed you too." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "You okay? You've been quieter lately." She hesitated, fingers tightening on his sleeve. "Zion, there's something I need to tell you." Concern flickered across his face. "You're scaring me." "What's wrong?" Naomi stepped aside and gestured to the dining table. The candlelight danced softly across the ultrasound photo lying between the plates. "That's what's wrong," she whispered. Zion's brow furrowed as he walked closer. He stared at the photo for a long time, confusion giving way to understanding. His breath hitched. Naomi? Is this? Yes, her voice cracked. 7 weeks when I found out. Almost 12 now. He sank into the nearest chair, still staring at the tiny, grainy image. You're pregnant. I wanted to tell you sooner, she rushed out. But you were so far away and I didn't want to say it over a screen. I didn't plan this, Zion. I swear I didn't. Hey. His voice was quiet, steady. You think I'd ever believe you did this on purpose? She blinked, caught off guard. I just didn't know how you'd feel. We barely know what we're doing. Zion finally looked up and the calm in his eyes stopped her breath. I don't know what I'm doing either. But I know one thing. I don't want you going through this alone. Naomi's composure cracked completely. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she shook her head. You don't have to say that. You don't owe me anything. He stood and closed the space between them, cupping her face in his hands. I'm not saying it because I owe you. I'm saying it because I mean it. Because I care about you. Because I already can't imagine my life without you. Her lips trembled. You're not angry? Angry? He gave a quiet laugh, more like disbelief than humor. Naomi, this might be the craziest, scariest surprise of my life, but also the best one. She exhaled a shaky breath, leaning into his chest. You're serious? He kissed the top of her head. Dead serious. I've spent years building things that don't matter. Money, companies, trophies, but this, you, us, this matters. When she finally pulled back, her tears had turned into a trembling smile. You still want dinner? Zion glanced at the table, then back at her. Only if you promise not to lock me out of your life again. She laughed, a real laugh this time and the first in weeks. Deal. They sat down together, their hands occasionally brushing as they ate. The candle flickered low, casting soft shadows around them. Outside, the city moved on as if nothing had changed. But inside that small apartment, everything had. Before the night ended, Zion reached across the table and took her hand. I've been thinking about something for a while, he said quietly. Before I left, I told you I wanted to build something real, something that lasts. Naomi looked at him, her eyes searching his. You mean the business idea you mentioned? Not just that, he said. I want to build a life. Something simple. Something grounded. Maybe that land I told you about, the one in Blue Ridge. I want to turn it into something meaningful. A community, maybe. A home. She smiled softly, squeezing his hand. That sounds beautiful, he smiled back. So does this. His gaze dropped to her stomach, then rose again to meet her eyes. No matter what happens next, we'll figure it out together. Naomi leaned forward and kissed him. Not desperate, not uncertain, but with quiet conviction. The kind that said, yes, we're terrified, yes, we're unprepared, but yes, we're in this. Outside, the rain began to fall softly against the window, washing the city clean. Inside, their world had just begun. 6 months later, the Atlanta skyline had been replaced by the rolling hills of Blue Ridge, Georgia. Soft green pastures stretching into mist-covered mountains and air that tasted like rain and pine. The city noise that once filled Naomi's life was now traded for birdsong and the low hum of crickets at dusk. Zion's dream had taken form faster than either of them imagined. What started as sketches and late-night brainstorming sessions had become the Eden Project. 10 acres of land dotted with sustainable tiny homes, solar panels glinting in the sunlight, and a community center rising in the middle of it all. He called it his quiet revolution. She called it home. Naomi stood on the porch of their nearly finished cabin, a soft breeze playing with her braids as she rubbed her belly. Now a gentle, unmistakable curve. Inside, Zion moved between blueprints and lumber samples, his shirt clinging to his back with sweat, his focus absolute. She smiled. Even out here, surrounded by simplicity, he carried the same determination that had made him a millionaire. Only now, it wasn't about status. It was about purpose. You're working too hard again, Naomi called out, leaning against the doorway. Zion looked up, a crooked smile spreading across his face. Says the woman who edits manuscripts at 2 a.m. Touché, she grinned, walking over and handing him a glass of cold lemonade. Drink, doctor's orders. He took it, brushing her fingers lightly as he did. How's my favorite author doing today? She rolled her eyes. Editor, not author. Not for long, he said, eyes twinkling. You've been writing more than editing lately. Don't think I haven't noticed. Naomi tried to hide her blush. Just journaling. Right, he said playfully. Journaling that happens to read like a novel. She laughed, shaking her head. You're ridiculous. Maybe. But I'm also right. He leaned in and kissed her forehead, his lips warm against her skin. You've always helped other people tell their stories. Maybe it's time you told your own. His words settled deep in her heart. Maybe he was right. Maybe her life, their story, was becoming something worth writing down. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, their friends arrived, Tiana, Brianna, and Jasmine, spilling out of a car loaded with food, laughter, and baby gifts. Lord, look at this place, Tiana exclaimed. You two really moved out here like some kind of romantic retreat, Jasmine laughed. And she's glowing. Naomi, you look like the definition of peace. Naomi hugged them one by one. You mean exhaustion, but I'll take peace. Brianna held out a small package wrapped in gold paper. Open it. Inside was a baby onesie with the words "Locked in Love" printed in bold black letters. Naomi groaned, laughing. You did not. Oh, we did, Jasmine said, grinning. It's only fair. You wouldn't be here if we hadn't locked that door. Zion appeared behind Naomi, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. And somehow I'm not even mad about it, see? Brianna said triumphantly. Our plan was genius. Naomi rolled her eyes but smiled. I'll admit it worked out better than expected. The group settled around the long wooden table outside, plates piled high with grilled food, laughter echoing into the twilight. As the first stars appeared, Zion lifted his glass. To unexpected beginnings, he said, and to the friends crazy enough to make them happen. They all raised their glasses, the sound of clinking echoing softly into the night. Later, as everyone drifted inside, Naomi lingered under the porch light, hand resting over her belly. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of cedar and earth. She whispered quietly, almost to herself, You're already so loved, little one. From behind her, Zion's arms circled her waist, his voice low and steady. She'll know that every day of her life. Naomi turned, smiling up at him. You really think it's a girl? He nodded, pressing a kiss to her temple. I know it, she laughed softly. Then I hope she gets your heart, only if she gets your courage. And as they stood there, framed by the glow of their half-built home and the hum of a world slowing down, Naomi realized this. They hadn't just found love. They'd built it from the ground up. The rain came first, a soft drizzle over Blue Ridge that grew into a steady rhythm against the cabin roof. Naomi had been restless all afternoon, pacing between the kitchen and the nursery, folding and refolding tiny onesies that were already perfectly stacked. Zion was outside, double-checking the generator before the storm hit. When the first cramp came, she ignored it. Just Braxton Hicks, she told herself. Practice contractions. But when the second came, sharper and deeper, her hand gripped the edge of the crib, and her breath hitched. By the time Zion stepped back inside, shaking rain from his hair, she was leaning against the wall, eyes squeezed shut. Naomi? She forced a shaky smile. Don't panic, but I think it's happening, his face drained of color. Now? You're not due for another 3 weeks. Well, she said through a strained breath, apparently our daughter didn't get that memo. Zion sprang into motion. Keys, hospital bag, car. He moved with the calm urgency of a man who'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. Though his trembling hands betrayed him, outside, the rain had turned into a downpour, thunder rolling through the mountains. He helped Naomi into the truck, one hand steadying her, the other gripping the steering wheel as they sped down the winding road toward the hospital in Gainesville. Between contractions, Naomi tried to breathe through the pain. Zion, slow down. He glanced over, panic and love clashing in his voice. You okay? Talk to me, Naomi. I'm fine, she gasped, gripping his hand so tightly his knuckles turned white. Just breathe with me. He matched her rhythm, voice low and steady. In, out. We've got this. By the time they reached the hospital, nurses were already waiting with a wheelchair. Within minutes, Naomi was changed into a gown and hooked up to monitors. Zion stayed glued to her side, wiping her forehead, whispering words that steadied her when she wanted to scream. Remember what Dr. Thompson said, he murmured, one contraction at a time. Easy for her to say, Naomi groaned, gripping his shirt. She's not the one doing it. He smiled through the fear, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. If I could take it from you, I would. Hours passed in a blur of pain, sweat, and whispered encouragements. The world narrowed to the sound of Naomi's breathing and the steady beeping of the monitor. When her strength faltered, Zion's voice became her anchor. "You're doing incredible, baby. I'm right here. You're not alone." At dawn, a golden glow spilled through the window, washing the room in light. Naomi's final push filled the air with a cry, high, raw, and beautiful. A nurse lifted a tiny wriggling form onto Naomi's chest. The world went quiet. Naomi's breath hitched as she looked down at their daughter, small and perfect, skin soft as silk, her little fist curling instinctively around Zion's finger. "She's here," Naomi whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "She's really here." Zion leaned close, his voice breaking. "She's perfect," the nurse smiled. 7 pounds even. "Congratulations, Mom and Dad." Naomi looked at Zion, still trembling from exhaustion and awe. "What should we name her?" He smiled, brushing a thumb across the baby's cheek. "You already know," Naomi nodded. "Eden Grace Holt." Zion repeated it softly, reverently. "Eden Grace." Their daughter's cries quieted at the sound of his voice, and for a moment, everything, the rain outside, the exhaustion, the fear, dissolved into something pure and infinite. Hours later, their friends arrived, filling the room with laughter and tears. Tiana handed Zion a camera. "We want pictures. Proof that our matchmaking skills created this masterpiece." Naomi smiled weakly from her bed. "You're never living this down, are you?" Brianna grinned. "Not a chance." Zion kissed Naomi's forehead, whispering, "They may have started it, but we're the ones who finished the story." Naomi smiled, eyes closing as little Eden stirred against her. "Not finished," she murmured sleepily. "Just beginning." A year later, the hills of Blue Ridge were alive with spring. The rain had faded, replaced by sunlight glimmering on the tall grass and the gentle hum of bees drifting between wildflowers. Their home, once half-built and surrounded by tools, now stood complete, every inch infused with laughter, love, and the tiny chaos of a 1-year-old. Naomi sat on the porch swing with Eden Grace nestled in her arms, rocking gently as the baby drifted between giggles and drowsy hums. A soft breeze carried the scent of lilac and the faint rhythm of jazz from the old speaker Zion loved. From the yard, Zion's voice called out, "You two planning to nap all day? Or can your favorite man join you?" Naomi smiled. "You already know she's the favorite, not you." He laughed, climbing the steps 2 at a time. "Fair enough," Eden squealed when she saw him, reaching out with both arms. Zion took her carefully, holding her high above his head until she shrieked with joy. "My little sunshine," he said, kissing her forehead before setting her gently back in Naomi's arms. He looked out at the mountains, hands on his hips. "You ever think about how all of this started?" Naomi gave him a playful glare. "You mean when my so-called friends locked me in a room with you?" Zion grinned. "Best abduction in history," she laughed, shaking her head. "It's insane how one night can change everything." He turned toward her, a softer look replacing the teasing one. "One night, and a lifetime after." Naomi tilted her head. "What's that look for?" Zion reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, black, elegant, understated. Her breath caught as he went down on one knee right there on the porch. The golden light catching on the ring nestled inside. "Naomi Pierce," he began, voice steady but low with emotion. "You've been my peace, my reason, and my greatest surprise. From the moment we got trapped in that hotel suite, I knew there was something different about you. Something real. You changed the way I see everything. And this," he glanced at Eden, smiling softly, "this little miracle is proof that life has better plans than we ever do." Naomi's eyes shimmered. "Zion," he shook his head gently. "Let me finish before I lose my nerve." He took a slow breath. "I don't just want to build dreams and homes with you. I want to build forever. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks as she let out a trembling laugh. "You really think I can say no to that?" Zion grinned. "I'd like to see you try." She nodded, heart full, voice breaking. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple gold band with a diamond that caught the afternoon light like captured sunlight. She kissed him slow and deep, the world narrowing to just them and the tiny hand of their daughter reaching curiously between them. Later that night, after Eden had fallen asleep in her crib, they sat out under the stars, wrapped in a blanket, the distant sounds of crickets filling the quiet. Naomi rested her head on Zion's shoulder. Do you ever think about what would have happened if that door hadn't locked? She asked softly. Zion smiled. Then I would have found another way to meet you. She looked up at him, her heart swelling. You always say the right thing. He kissed her hair. No, just the true thing. Eden stirred in the baby monitor inside, letting out a small sigh that made them both smile. Naomi whispered, I think she knows. Zion chuckled quietly. Knows what? That her parents are hopelessly in love. He wrapped his arm tighter around her, pulling her close. Then she's already the smartest girl in the world. The night deepened. The stars shimmered brighter, and the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the echoes of laughter, promises, and the memory of a locked door that once trapped two strangers and opened the rest of their lives.